Hi, I'm Bob Herreen. I'm a research forester with Union Camp Corporation out of Franklin, Virginia. I'm here to tell you about our hardwood demonstration area. This is a natural hardwood area that has been cut approximately 25 years ago. This is the Union Camp Treadway-Harris track in Southampton County on the edge of Greenville County, Virginia. This track, we believe, was in fields around the 1850s and then was abandoned sometime around the war between the states, and then we know it was cut by railroad logging around 1905, so it makes the stand behind me about 90 years old. It's on a Red River bottom. A Red River bottom is a river that starts up in the mountains or in the Piedmont and brings all those sediments down. Where I'm standing right now floods to 4 to 6 feet every year during the spring. We just yesterday had a slight flood. Portions of this track flooded a few inches because of all the rain we had. But right now the track is quite dry because the water moves off almost as fast as it moves on. Now this track, this stand behind us is a bottomland hardwood stand. We did several different treatments here at the time we cut it. We left one block of 5 acres uncut, and that's what we're standing in front of. Left another block that we high graded or did a diameter limit cut twice every 15 years, and then the rest of the blocks were clear cut with different treatments. Clear cut with no control of residuals, clear cut with the residuals being injected, and then clear cut with the residuals being knocked down at the time of harvest, and we did it with a chopper. Today we do the same thing, but we use a whole tree chipper. And the last block was clear cut and chopped, but we then at age 5 came in and stripped it, and you'll see what that did. Now, this block behind me is uncut. It was approximately 65 years old when we first came in here and did the other harvesting, and we left this block, and it's now approximately 90 years old. We normally start our tour here, which is the highest point on the Red River bottom. We're on the natural levee, which is a bluff, and it's been built up through the years because as the river floods over, it drops the heaviest sediments here, the sand and heavier sediments, and carries the silt and clay further in. So this builds up, and this is actually a natural levee or a high point on the stand. We start here to show you the river and show you a SMZ, which is a stream size management zone that we never cut. We protect our clear cuts and from the river with a stream side management zone. That stream side management zone is about 100 feet wide, and it's from the river back to our clear cut. You're looking at a 2-year-old clear cut and a stream side management zone where we've done little or no cutting, and we've kept all the equipment out. We don't allow equipment in the streamside zone so that we don't break the banks down. The streamside management zone gives us an all-age, over-age stand in every one of our clear-cut setups where we have several different ages of clear-cut. You'll always have some management zones where some animals can den in hollow trees and nest in big old trees. This is Block F, the uncut stand. This stand, at the time we cut the rest, was about 65 years old. It's 90 years old now. Here's a picture of what it looked like back 25 years ago. Not much different than it looks now. And also, this is a diagram of the whole study area. And in this diagram, you notice that we have all these blocks laid out. We have the uncut, commercial high grade, clear cut with injecting residuals, and clear cut chop, and clear cut thin. Notice this big tree behind us here. That tree was 54 inches at the time that we first came in here, and it was a great big multi-stem oak, and it's died. If you'll look around here, there are a lot of trees beginning to fade out of here. In the southeast, we don't have any species except 2 that live over 300 years. And those 2 are white oak and bald cypress, which is basically in swamps. All the other species only live approximately 80 to 100 years and then start to decline. So this stand is now declining. And one of the favorite things of environmental groups is to lock up the forest and say, well, it will stay this way forever. Unfortunately, these trees are not going to stay this way. A forest is a dynamic, living system. It will change. Old trees, like old people, eventually die. And if you'll notice, this stand is not, there's no regeneration in here at all. These small trees in here are just about as old as the big ones. Nothing is regenerating. This stand will eventually become mostly oak and hackberry. The elm, the sweet gum, the ash, and the sycamore are going to drop out. So all you're going to have here is an old stand, and then those trees are now fading also. If you look up, a lot of branch breakage, you notice a lot of branches. And keep in mind, this is a floodplain. So everything you see on the ground now, like that dead tree over there, this stuff here, will float out of here this winter, or this spring. It will float away. So everything that's here now, except the very big pieces, were not here last year. And as we go through here, I'm going to show you some stump holes. And what they are just big holes in the ground where the stump rotted out enough that when the flood came in, the stump popped out of the ground and floated out. And so now it's nothing but a big hole. You may remember that I said this was a floodplain and that the water often in the spring gets as high as 6 feet. If you'll look up at this branch, you'll see there's a little piece of wood that had floated on the water and got lodged in the branch of this tree, and that shows you that indeed the water was 6 feet high. Right. Now in block F, we have a chart here that shows how much basal area was here before we harvested and how much basal area was here at age 23. Now, let me tell you what basal area is. Basal area is merely if you took every tree and cut it off at 4.5 feet and measured the cross-section area of that tree and added it all together, that's the basal area of the stand. So all it is a measure of the diameter of the trees and the number of the trees in the stand. So it gives you a measure of how much volume's there. It has no relationship to the height. The height of all these clear cuts are the same, but the diameters and number of trees is what's changed. Now notice in the block F, in the uncut stand on this chart, notice we had a percentage of basal area. We had more oak than anything else. And the oak is now down somewhat, mostly because of that big 54-inch tree that died. But the thing that's really winning out here, notice the ash is up a little bit. The elm and hackberry, mostly the hackberry is way up. And that's what we're going to have here eventually is hackberry, oak, and a little bit of ash. But basically, we now have really less volume in this stand than we had to begin with, because old stands start to deteriorate. We're now on block E, which is a commercial high grade. Now what a high grade is where they go in and cut the best trees and leave the poorer trees. Now this particular block has been high graded twice. In 1969 and 70, when we came in here and did the original cutting for the clear cuts, we did one high grade here. And what we did, we did what we call a diameter limit cut here. And we cut all the trees that were 16 inches or larger at diameter at DBH, and DBH is right here, 4.5 feet. So we came in and we cut out everything that was 16 inches or larger. That was 25 years ago. Then 15 years later, we came in here and cut everything that was 14 inches or larger. And the reason we had to drop the diameter is because there weren't any big trees. We'd already cut them out. And this is what normally goes on most private lands even today. A logger comes in and says, well, don't worry about the little stuff, it will regenerate. Well, it doesn't. If you'll look here, there is no regeneration going on. There's too much shade for any regeneration. So the main thing is and this high grading is the same thing that people sometimes call selection cutting. Unfortunately, selection cutting mostly turns into high grading. And even when it doesn't, at some point in the rotation, at some point you have to start over with the clear cut because you've removed everything that could regenerate the stand. Now, this is a picture of what the stand looked like in 1969 when it was first cut, and here's a picture of what the stand looked like after the second high grade. Notice that there are big openings and there's grass in this picture. That grass is now mostly large shrubs and things of that sort. What you've got to be aware of here is that there are several things going on here. Where we left big maples, there's nothing regenerating at all. Where they cut down a big tree and left a fairly large hole, we have some green ash coming in. What happened here was that when we cut the 16-inch trees out, the green ash were about 14 inches in diameter, and so when we cut the big trees out, it released them, and they produced seed and it came into those holes. And so the seed from the 14-inch trees then produced this young reproduction. And then later, we cut out those 14-inch trees. Now you say, well, this looks pretty good. But keep in mind, this is only a small hole. And instead of the whole stand being young reproduction, we only have a small bit of it. This is a bar graph for this high grade for Block E. And if you look at it, you'll see that most of the stand out here is red maple, and the dark part of the bar graph is the merchable material, and the crosshatch is the unmerchable. If you look at these bar graphs, you'll notice that on one side we have percent of stems per acre, the other side percent of basal area per acre. And that's percent. In other words, you take the total number of stems that are there and what percent are in maple, oak, and ash. And what we're trying to do with our cuts is cut down on the amount of undesirable and increase the amount of desirable species. As you look around this general high-graded area, say to yourself, is this what you want to have for your children? And the answer is no, because if they had clear cut at this time, this stand would have been much better, and Block D will show you that, and further blocks. All right, this is Block D, which is a clear cut without controlling the residuals. Now, what are residuals? Look at this photograph here of what it looked like right after it was cut in 1969, and you'll notice that there are a lot of small trees standing there. Those are trees less than 6 inches diameter. They weren't merchable. And those trees are residuals. That's what residuals are, the trees that you leave here after a cut. And we did nothing to these trees. So if you look around here, you'll notice, like this tree directly behind me here, this tree here was probably about a 2-inch residual. It's a maple, it's hollow, and the reason it's hollow is because at the time that it was cut, at the time they cut the stand, they damaged this tree. They skitter or something rubbed against it, and any tree that's damaged at the time of the cutting will be hollow to the size that it was. If it was a 2-inch tree at the time it was damaged, there's a 2-inch hollow in that tree. The work by Alice Shago up in Durham, New Hampshire will prove all of this. He did a whole lifetime of work showing that this is what happens. Now, this clear cut is a big improvement over that high grade. If you're a small landowner, you'd much prefer to have this than to have a high graded stand, because here at least right now you can see he's got a good merchantable pulpwood stand in here and a few good saw timber trees, but not too many. And that's what we'll show you later, other things you can do that will improve the amount of saw